They want to bring 10,000 workers from outside Canada. But what about the talent pool which is already in Canada? Not conducting any draw, for the last year or so with CEC specific, that also doesn't make any sense. What's the point of wasting your notifications of interest on the same draw that IRCC is going to conduct, and people are obviously going to take the IRCC? So what's the point? Has there been any other subject which can be a cause of misery, excitement, surprise, shocks, something that you're looking forward to, something that you don't want to hear from? I guess Canadian immigration can top it, all of that, or at least give a stiff challenge to anything else that could possibly bring up that kind of an emotion. Express entry, our favorite subject. Now, they conducted 2 draws this week. The first draw happened on the 11th of July, invited 800 candidates in an all-program draw. All-program draw basically means Canadian experience class, Canadian federal skilled worker class, and federal skilled trade categories. The minimum score, the CRS cutoff, was 505. It was a Tuesday, and now I'm beginning to think if Tuesday is the new, Tuesday is the new Wednesday kind of a thing, because suddenly IRCC has been, becoming regular with the Tuesdays draws. The earlier week also the draw which happened was on a Tuesday. But this was a surprise draw, to be very honest. And the reason why it was a surprise draw is, first of all, I didn't understand. I mean, I'm talking about me, obviously, and IRCC doesn't have to explain to me, but I'm just saying I was a bit surprised with the draw, because one, it was not expected. This week we didn't expect, because last week itself they had conducted 4 back-to-back draws in a row, one after another, on each day of the week, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So this week, obviously, there was no expectation of a draw, but they did conduct a draw. So that was the first surprise. Secondly, it was a Tuesday. Third, it was only 800 invitations. So why 800? Only 800. But obviously, few things came to mind. First one was that this draw was meant to clear out the PNPs. So if you have received a nomination, then you have 600 points. This is for express entry linked PNP streams. You have 600 points, you come into the express entry pool, and you are. So IRCC has this agreement with the provinces where they are obligated to issue invitations to people who have received nominations. Otherwise, what's the point of receiving a nomination? Why does province have to do anything at all, right? So that obligation is there. Therefore, throughout the last few years, we have seen that the PNP draws continue regardless of the fact that everything else stops. So this was one thing that said, okay, that could be one of the reasons. But then 800 invitations, again, didn't make sense. If they just had to do a PNP draw, they could have just done a PNP draw, right? 800 invitations didn't make sense. Either you want to clear out 500s or everybody about 500, then again, 800 didn't make sense. At least you could have issued 1,000 invitations, cleared out everybody above 500. Regardless, why it didn't have to make sense to me, right? I mean, at the end of the day, IRCC will do what makes sense to them. So they conducted a draw with 800 invitations. Score was 505, extremely high. But again, if you have been watching my videos, if you are following this channel, then you know we've been discussing about this. This is not something. So that was again thing that was surprised that, hey, we've been talking about this and now this is happening. Is this how it's going to be? That was another thing that went up there. We have been talking about this, that whenever the category-based draws will start, then the CRS scores for the regular express entry draws will be high, will remain high, because at the end of the day, and I've been saying this as well, IRCC does not have limitless ITAs. There is a limit to it, obviously. They cannot just issue blanket invitations every week, 5,000. It's not going to happen, because issuing an ITA basically means commitment from IRCC to complete the application in terms of, if they've invited you, then they should be, at the end of the day, be able to deliver the decision on that application if you choose to proceed with it. So, and obviously, when they are finalizing an application, it relates to a quota towards a permanent residence, which is a limited one. So at the end of the day, if your annual quota for economic immigration, which includes the federal high skilled, is a limited number. So for this year, it's 82,880. Add to that 30 to 40,000 people from the provincial nominee express entry linked stream. You're roughly between 120,000 people, not ITS people, because one ITA could mean multiple people. So based on all this calculation, we always knew, we are always expecting that there is going to be limited number of ITAs. Based on that, if they are now going to conduct category based draws and issue significant number of invitations there, obviously the regular express entry draw is going to take a hit. It's no brainer. I'm sure you can do the math and you can also understand this. But what does that do for everybody else? It again makes them more anxious, puts them on pins and needles, do not understand what exactly is going on, because this way they can't really plan. They don't know what's going to happen. For example, look at people who are Canadian experience class. I guess this group of people are the most affected, most impacted. They are the ones who obviously have the short end of the stick here. They have the raw bargain, and it just doesn't make sense, right? Listen, guys, who is federal skilled workers? I'm not against federal skilled workers. I'm not for CEC. I'm not doing that kind of a thing. But I'm just explaining. People who are CECs, why are they CECs in the first place? And I know I'm deviating from this one, what we are talking about from the stream, but this is an important subject, right? If you are a CEC, the reason why you are a CEC is because you came to Canada with certain expectations, understandings based on what IRCC has been telling you, what IRCC has been promoting, what IRCC has been talking. When I'm saying IRCC, I mean Canada. It could be that you were led to believe that studying in Canada would give you an option to become PR because that's an established pathway. Heck, I have said that so many times because it is an established pathway, right? You can come to Canada, you can study, you can get a work permit. By work permit, you can also be eligible for different PNP streams. So many options there if you come to Canada as an international student. Over the last few years, starting from 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, people have been regularly coming to Canada, studying in Canada, spending a lot of money, of course, and then just slogging it out primarily only with the intention of getting through to becoming a permanent resident. Now, if they were doing all of this, it was all because they were led to believe there is a pathway at the end of it. An express entry was the biggest one because Canadian experience class obviously gets more points. Getting more points basically means that you should be ahead of the queue, or you should be able to come in front of the queue. But when that queue or the line of the queue itself is raised, why? Because the whole program, the whole process, the way the whole thing is being conducted has been changed. It can really hurt. It can make you really angry. It can really piss you off. It can really, you're one of those. And then you see invitations are being issued, but sometimes not the way you would have expected. For example, another case in the point is the H-1B workers that Canada wants to bring. They want to bring 10,000 workers from outside Canada who are H-1B holders. I can understand that these H-1B holders are considered to be more in the specialized tech field or different fields, of course, but they have been vetted by US to come to Canada, to come to the US. And now what Canada is trying to do is attract those workers. And by attracting those workers, they're creating a talent pool in Canada. And based on that, they would then be able to attract employers to set up base in Canada. So it has a hidden agenda there. But what about the talent pool which is already in Canada? There are layoffs in the US, of course, but there are also layoffs in Canada. What about them? Why can't you offer something to them, retain them, and then promote them as a talent pool which is available to the employers? But it doesn't work, right? So same way, I guess Canadian experience class has been one of the most affected with all these different things, where IRCC could have easily done a CEC specific draw at least once, at least twice. They could have done, when they did a CEC specific draw on the 13th of May and invited 27,000. That definitely was a ridiculous draw because 75 CRS just did not make sense. I mean, when you're trying to promote, what kind of people you need to bring in, and that did not make sense. I'm saying did not make sense. I'm not against it. It did not make sense. And then not conducting any draw after, for the last year or so with CEC specific, that also doesn't make any sense. The least you could do is at least do an occasional, if not regular, occasional CEC specific draw and give some chance to people who are already there. Give them a bit of a relief breather, if you want to call it. I'm sorry, I'm ranting out, but then just deviated completely. So, anyways, express entry draw number 1, which happened on the 11th of July, and that was one. Express entry draw number 2, which happened, was on the 12th of July, the next day. This was a category-based draws. They invited French speakers. Again, this was a draw which happened second back-to-back draw. So the previous week, the last week, they invited 2,300 candidates in the French category specific draw, and now they invited 3,800 in the French category draw. Almost 6,100 people in 2 draws over 2 weeks that they have invited. This is what I'm saying. It doesn't make any sense to me. I know you want to promote Francophone, which is a good thing. I know you have a target in your mandate letter to improve or increase the Francophone immigration, which is a good thing. You're missing out on CECs. Anyways, so the draw for 3,800 happened. Let's talk about this particular draw a little bit more in detail. In this draw, draw number 258, 12th of July, 22nd draw of 2023, CRS score went right down to 375. 3,800 invitations were issued. This was a French category-based draw only. The tiebreaker for this draw was on the 15th of June 2023, which is all right. The pool breakdown is quite interesting. 491 to 500, it showed at 834. The number of profiles, if you compare to the previous week, only one added. And also what this French draw told me, or gives me an understanding of how we've been looking at things, right? So for example, earlier when we were speculating and discussing that who are these people who get scores of 500 plus, remember all this time when the draws were happening, we were talking about who are these people who are getting 500 plus? How do they get it? One of the common understanding was that these are the people who can get high scores in French, high scores in English. Of course, that adds up to 62 points in your express entry profile. These are the people. And we always assume that there's a big number of people, especially coming from the countries in the northern part of Africa. There are plenty of countries who are French speaking primarily. A lot of people come from there as well. But now, after issuing 3,800 invitations, last week they issued 2,300, 3,800. Now, score went right down to 375, which tells you there aren't enough people in the express entry pool who are Francophones who have CLB7 as French language. There aren't enough there. So all this while, who are the people who are getting scores of 500 plus? Again, that sort of is a head scratcher kind of a thing. Like, I mean, there aren't enough there. And if there aren't enough there, then who are those people 500 plus? Then again, that raises that question. It's people, number one, who are declining ITAs. Number two, who have job offers with LMIA or intra-company transfer. Number three, people who are actually inside Canada, have completed Canadian masters, have CLB 9, CLB 10, have Canadian experience. These are the guys who are above 500. Of course, there are also few of the Francophones with English as well. So this is what forms that 500 plus segment. However, as you can see, the pool breakdown, 601 to 1,200, only 276. 501 to 600, only 619. But then this is after 1 week. The last week was on the 5th of July. Was it 7th of July? Let me just check what was the date. The last draw, the draws are happening with such frequency, you keep losing track. 5th of July. 4th of July, of course, the Independence Day. 4th of July was the last draw, and then the next one, the last, shoot me. 4th of July was the no program specified. All program draw. Then there was a draw on the 5th of July. There was a draw on the 6th of July. There was a draw on the 7th of July. And finally, there was a draw on 11th of July. They've been conducting draws so frequently. So as of 11th of July, there are only 619 people with 501 and 600. And then they have conducted a draw with 800 profiles, which basically means that the number of people at 501 to 600 should be hardly 50 to 100 people, no more than that. 491 to 500 is only 834 at this point of time. Therefore, if IRCC was to conduct a reasonable size express entry draw today, all program, your scores will be back into the 480s. It's as simple as that. Pure mathematics, right? Nothing complicated here. They have effectively cleared out everybody who was Francophone, most of them, of course, because the scores went right down to 375. With this score of 491 to 500, only at 834, 619 already cleared out. So 150 profiles there. At 481 to 490, you have 4,686 people, which is a reasonably big number of people. But only and only if IRCC is to conduct a draw today, tomorrow, within this few days, then they can have, you could be back into 480s as the score. But will IRCC conduct a draw? Will they not? Or if they will continue with the small number of all program draws, which now I'm expecting, we might expect something next week again on a Tuesday. As I said, Tuesdays are the new Wednesdays now, right? And if that is to happen, then we would also expect a category-based draw on the following week. But let's talk about that in a bit once we come to that. Key analysis point, the remaining number of profiles with 481 plus is about 5,000 plus. We don't know the exact number because a lot of French speakers also got cleared out, right? So we do not know how many of these people in this pool are Francophones or French speakers. The 491 range is about 200 plus profiles. Again, we do not know the exact number. With Francophone cleared out, we do not know how many people were cleared out. Next draw estimate, we don't know. And the reason we don't know is because it's anybody's guess. Is IRCC going to conduct an all-program draw? Is IRCC going to conduct a reasonable size all-program draw? Are they not going to conduct an all-program draw? Would it be only a PNP draw? Would they be a category-based draw? Now, the expectation was that there would be a better STEM category draw, but it seems that they are being ignored. When it did not happen last week, we thought, okay, there would be a draw this week, or there would be another draw later in that last week. Nothing happened. This week, instead of anything else, they had a draw of 2,300 invitations for Francophones last week. They conducted another draw of 3,800 this week. Again, that brought our hopes up, thinking that maybe there will be another draw for STEM category this week with a bigger number of invitations. Didn't happen, nada. I just wish they give a bit more clarity to people out there, because there are so many of you out there who are waiting, thinking, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? In the meantime, Ontario conducts a tech draw. Okay. I mean, like, why are you conducting a tech draw? IRCC is conducting the same STEM occupations draw. What's the point of wasting your notifications of interest on the same draw that IRCC is going to conduct? And people are obviously going to take the IRCC. So what's the point? Instead, go out and issue those notifications to maybe other categories, right? Other knock codes who are not being considered within the STEM, within the categories that IRCC is invented. But nothing there, obviously, right? Why would they want to hear us saying all of that? Because they have their own plans. We don't know. It's not only the STEM category. Of course, the other categories, there is an agricultural category, there is a trade category, there is a transport category. Those three categories, draws are yet to be held. So we are waiting for those as well. Healthcare, they have conducted the draw. They issued 2,000 invitations. Are there going to be more invitations in that? We don't know. Okay, so there were two draws of healthcare, 2,000 invitations. STEM, only 500 invitations. There definitely has to be more there. At this point of time, it's just not sure when it's going to happen. Plus, as I said, you have the agri industry, agri knock codes, agri in demand, and then you have the transport, and then you have trades. Okay, but I don't expect a lot of invitations because the number of knock codes are quite few in most of these categories. So I expect smaller number of invitations coming out to these categories. STEM, there are more than 24 knock codes. I expect much larger size coming out, but let's see when that happens. Thank you so much for joining in. I shall see you next time. Until then, stay safe, take care, and stay forever hopeful.